My memory of 9/11 back in 2001 is pretty vivid. Like everybody always talks about, they can remember where they were, what they were doing, and I can see it very vividly in my mind right now as I get ready to tell you this story. It was my 4th year teaching at a school named James A. Garfield High School up in Northeast Ohio. No more than 400 kids in the building, 2 social studies teachers, me being one of them. And I taught a class called Civics. In my room, there were like 6 computers. It was a small, like, mini lab, as they were calling it. They were trying to be high tech. And I always had the one computer rolling with CNN at the time, always, because it'd always update what was going on. And I remember it being frozen, like it just wasn't updating. And I mean, that's kind of weird. And we're just talking about class. It's a beautiful Tuesday, as you've heard everybody describe it probably. Blue skies, gorgeous, kind of cool, it wasn't real hot. And Mrs. Jones, who was our librarian, comes over. She was 2 doors down. And she comes and said, "Mr. Jordan," she says, "you're not going to believe this. You got to come check this out. A plane, they think a plane, just hit the World Trade Center. They see smoke coming out of it, and they just turned onto it." So this has to be like that 8:40, 8:49, somewhere in there range. So I'm like, wow, what the heck's going on? We're all trying to think what's going on. So I take my class, because that's the only place where TV was, over to the library, where it's the TV, so we kind of see what was kind of going on, current events, talk to the kids, what we think's going on. As we go in there to sit down, the second plane hits, and we see it. Obviously everybody's, some kids start crying. Teachers are also, some other teachers are in the room, and we're all like, what in the world is going on? At that point, we start going, oh my God, what's taking place? Are we under attack? How in the world would 2 planes possibly fly into those buildings? And I just remember that from that point on, kind of like the day just becomes kind of numb, right? Parents start picking their kids up, taking them home. Kids are crying. I don't have a cell phone. I'm in my first year of actually just celebrating my first year of marriage, and I can't get a hold of my wife, who's in another school, because I don't have a cell phone, and I can't get her to answer the phone. So I'm freaking out. It's my first year as a head football coach, so we're trying to figure out what's going to happen, and they end up canceling practice. And I just remember, and I think this probably describes everywhere, just being like, oh my God, what is going on? And just being numb, being very, very emotional, and just everybody just being stunned. And then as clarification came out, I remember there being anger. And I remember the rally around the flag, as I'm sure your teachers have talked to you about. And everybody on 9/12, what America was like on 9/12. And America was upset, angry, and it always seems like through tragedy we always pull together, and that's exactly what happened.
I was in 7th grade science class. I remember a teacher coming in and talking to our teacher, and we turned the TV on and saw that something had hit the building. At that point in time, I think people thought it was just like a little 2-seater plane that lost its way. Went into the next class and saw it was a terrorist attack, and actually the principal made everybody turn TVs off because it was becoming really a distraction. We canceled all of our after-school events. We had a football game, I specifically remember, in middle school. Remember my mom picking me up after school, and then we were going to get gas because she was out of gas, but everybody, it was almost like apocalyptic. Everybody was filling up on gas thinking this terror, what does this mean for us? As a kid, it was just really interesting because we didn't really understand what terrorism was, at least as a middle schooler. I think it was kind of a newer concept, so that was crazy.
It was my 2nd year of teaching high school English in Newark, and I had taught the first period or 2 during the day. Didn't know that anything was going on, and had walked out into the cafeteria, and it was silent, and the cafeteria was never silent. And I looked, all the TVs were on, and as I stood there, the second plane crashed into the towers. And the rest of the day, obviously, everything was kind of at a standstill. We weren't allowed to have TVs going in the school because there were students that had relatives in the towers and then the buildings and didn't know the whereabouts of their relatives. And so it was very hard to kind of continue on with that day. We had just stopped what we were doing and just had a lot of conversations. A lot of people went home. And I think for the next, I don't even know long, I was glued to the TV as well. Couldn't believe that this had actually happened.
Well, 9/11, I worked 3rd shift the night before, and when I got home, the first tower had already been hit. And my wife told me about that. We had the news on, and then I saw the second tower get hit. And at that point, I knew that it was an attack and not accidental. That same day, my son was on vacation, and I knew he was either going to be in New York or Washington, D.C., and we weren't able to get a hold of him for hours because he was actually stuck on the outer belt of Washington, D.C. in traffic for like, I think, 4 to 6 hours. And his phone didn't work because cell services were down.
September 11th, 2001 was the first year I was teaching here at Upper Arlington, so I had just started sort of a new phase of my career. I was teaching in room 111, and someone came into the room and they said, "Have you watched the TV? Did you see what's happening?" So we turned our TV on, then the bell rang and we had to go to the next period. And of course at that point everyone was kind of quietly focused on getting to the next room so you can see what's happening. So we sat sort of quietly watching this group of kids that I was just getting to know, 9th graders and a new experience, and watched whenever the second plane went into the second tower. And there was just sort of this sense of absolute uncertainty about what's happening. Like, is this the first of something that's going to be a whole nationwide, situation? Like, what's going on? And so we sort of kind of quietly kept going through the day, like not sure exactly what do you do? We had no precedent for what to do in a situation like that. And end of the day, I mean, some kids left, some kids, went home, parents took kids because, again, people were just not sure what to do. But I remember taking a walk that evening and thinking, this could be the beginning of something really destructive. Again, I had just moved here, so I made a point of calling to Pennsylvania, speaking with my parents, letting them know, as many people were doing, that I loved them just in case something else happened, sort of walking around with eyes open. I think one of the most important things about September 11th, 2001 is actually September 12th, 2001, because it was the gentlest, kindest, most empathetic sense of community I ever felt in our country. People were very sensitive to the fact that people around them were concerned. And so we became more concerned for each other. I wish that we would celebrate September 12th more and live that attitude every day.